I will introduce Allan here as you bring him on stage. It's my great pleasure to introduce Allan Savory to the Real Circularity stage. Allan is the founder of the Savory Institute, an active land management practitioner, a speaker, author of many influential books and trainings on holistic management. I've known Allan and his work for over 3 decades. When I was in those early days of corporate sustainability I referred to earlier, I hosted Allan at a company event and I took some of his holistic management training. And I'm very glad that I did. It's part of rounding out my education. Allan, it's good to see you again and welcome to the Real Circularity Summit.
Well, good to see you. Good to see you too, Ken.
Well, you know, Allan, I mentioned earlier that I thought I'd been working on these unsustainability issues for a long time, getting on for 40 years now in my case, but you best me by another 30 years. That's almost unheard of. I think it's going to be a challenge to discuss 70 years of your work in the next 45 minutes or so, but we'll make a go of it. And
Okay.
I want to go back, Allan, to a time when you were 20 years old and you secured your dream job at the then Rhodesian game department. And then about 30 years later, in 1988, you wrote in the preface to your book, Holistic Resource Management, that your dream had ended simply because you cared. Explain what you meant by that. Why did your dream job, your optimism fade?
Oh, Ken, I think what I meant by that's you're asking me to think a long way back, and I'm getting senile
Well, you're
moments.
writing your memoir, so I thought it might be, still
and I'm
in there
busy
somewhere.
writing memoir of all those years. But basically, and I stress through no wisdom, force of circumstance, accident, whatever, how these things happen in the world. When I was about 20, when I joined the game department, as a newly minted young ecologist, this new science of ecology, I had a burning desire to work with elephants and to become perhaps later the world's expert on elephants, as one of the first in the field studying them like that. And this was a tremendous desire. I loved elephants more than all the other game. They're such wonderful creatures. And I started to observe biodiversity loss or habitat destruction in these wild areas that we were setting aside as future national parks. So they were already losing biodiversity. Now, I worked at that time for the Colonial Office and employed out of London in northern Rhodesia, as Zambia was. And they sent out Frank Fraser Darling, later knighted. He became Sir Frank. And he spent 6 weeks with me. So as a young man, I took him around these wild areas, showing him this habitat destruction under our management, and he had no answers. Now, he was at the time probably the world's, or one of the world's top ecologists. That's why the British government had sent him out. And that troubled me. As a 20-year-old, I was in a very senior position and expected to provide answers and manage. And here I was with one of the world's top people, and he had no more idea than I did to explain it. And literally that changed my life. I then realized if I become the world's expert on elephants and get a PhD and publish books on them, at the end of my life, I will have done nothing to save them. Because every creature, including humans, is totally habitat dependent. We can actually live longer without food and water than we can without habitat. It is the most important thing for any creature, including humans. So at that point, I literally said I have to give up what I truly would like to work on and spend my life on to focus on something more serious for humans. Now, I had no idea at that age what a tip of a big iceberg I was hitting, and that now, 70 years later, all scientists in the world would be unwittingly acknowledging that management is the root cause of biodiversity loss, desertification, megafires, fueling climate change, and now feeding on each other. And so accidentally, as I stressed, I began to focus on that as a 21-year-old, really.